Hey everyone, I just wanted to get on here and do a version of this that's like actually a response to some of the points Cody makes, and Cody and his friend, whose name escapes me at the moment, Noel. So that's what this version of the video is going to be. Oh, and I should say, I do believe Amber Heard. When I made my original video about the misogyny bothering me, I was not as familiar with the case as I am now, and it's a little bit nuts, and I wish almost that I wasn't as familiar as I am with it and hadn't read so much of the UK court documents, because it's just wild, and it's, ignorance is bliss is a saying for a reason, because it's sort of nice not to know how little regard people have when it's a woman who looks like the mean girl in every movie and TV show you've ever seen, or at least most of them. And I mean, to be fair, it's not just that. Like, you don't have to be conventionally pretty to be hated as a woman, or white or blonde. Every race of woman has faced this level of ire by the hate mob, by a hate mob, by men and women alike. Irrational, disproportionate for the crime. You'd think they would reserve this to like really humiliate someone like Putin. That would make sense. Show him, he's a loser, that they don't respect him, he's evil, because he's evil, actually. But it's never the Putins, it's never the Prince Andrews, it's never the R. Kellys who inspire this level of ire. It just doesn't. Women don't get that mad. Men don't get that mad. Women forever their age is regarded as inconsequential. They're universally sort of seen as more mature, but also not deserving of leadership roles. Men are more immature naturally, and so, we let them be boys forever. It's just so many factors here that work against women. Like, Iran has a legal accountability age where for girls it's 9, for boys it's 15. And I think they're like one of the few countries to put it in law, but I think that mindset is very universal. That idea that girls know what they're doing and are manipulative from a young age, and like, so Amber being 25 or no 22 when they met doesn't mean anything. It just, and it's funny because it's not haha funny, but it's like black women live there, like that's where black girls live, is always being treated adultified. But with white women and every other race of women, I think it happens really when their opponent is a man. Then, like, he's 60, he could be twice her age, father age, and it's still, nobody cares. But if it's flipped, that cougar is, it's even more so. Like, this is what I was saying in that video. Like, I really think, I know it's conjecture, but I really think if this had been someone like Jennifer Aniston in Depp's position, and we learned all this about her, and she dated someone like Nick Robinson, like I feel like I've lived that timeline, and because I know my people. I say this, I know my people, and by that I mean I know my species. I know how people are. I'm aware of the biases that everyone has. I grew up with them too. So I have a sense of what would happen if it were a woman, an older woman, in Depp's position, like a legend, like a Jennifer Aniston, and a younger guy, and he's saying all this stuff about her being drunk, sloppy, unsexy, gross, abusing him. I know in my heart of hearts they would not be treating a male Amber Heard, aka Nick Robinson, this way. They would not be exalting a female Johnny Depp, aka Jennifer Aniston, like this. They would be doing what they're doing now, but, you know, sticking to gender. So it would be like, it would still be the woman being humiliated. That is to say, it would still be Jennifer Aniston saying, you predator, you did that to this poor boy. He was only 20 something, and you're this old crazy bitch. And, you know, I know, because men have never had this energy for any male predator. Like, bad ones, objectively bad ones, proven ones. Not to talk of if they'd done what Amber is accused of doing, this light nothing stuff where the Jennifer Aniston equivalent, Jennifer Aniston, is like accusing that he broke her finger with a glass bottle, doesn't have proof of that, and there's like recordings of her saying, oh, you know, I broke it, like immediately disproving that lie. People would run with, oh, she's a liar too, on top of everything else. It's just very frustrating. And, you know, misogyny is just very universal. It's just painfully universal. And people, oh, and the youngest generation of teens and tweens are so brainwashed. They're just so, like, ride or die for men and boys, and they always have been. Like, when I was growing up, girls of all races were, like, always giving the boys the benefit of the doubt. And I don't know what it is, but something about me makes boys be honest to me and around me, and they would just say their intentions without even bothering to lie. And it's just like, I know dudes, and it's just like, I feel like most girls don't know guys, and I know not all guys, but a lot of them are just, they're self first. Most of them have always been self first, man first. They will never do this for you. When the next male predator exposed, they will not do this for you, ladies. Like, it's just the lack of reciprocation. Or the lack of reciprocity and the unfitting levels of ire are hard to deal with. And I may have COVID. Boy, I'm so lightheaded. Okay. So I just wanted to respond to this in parts. And, hopefully it won't be that long. Alright.
Have you been watching the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard thing?
The most I've tapped into is a series of dad jokes on Reddit that should not be funny. I mean, the obvious is Amber Turd.
Yeah, I love that one.
So I'm recording this part like 6 or 7 days after recording that intro, because it turns out I did have COVID, so I was a bit out of it. I'm still sick, but much better. It really, at least for me, affected my spaciness, which I will chalk up as the reason I weirdly misspoke a few times that intro, just like some grammar things that pretty unlike me, but or I'm doing it again, that are pretty unlike me. Anyway, it was small stuff, but I couldn't help noticing when I was re-listening to that part and editing it. I really notice when I leave out prepositions or forget to be possessive or whatever. Anyway, so in response to this little portion, of course he found the Amber Turd thing funny, like almost every person with a juvenile sense of humor did. And if you hate Amber, all the more, and if you adore Depp, all the more. I didn't. It wasn't just because of the bias of leaning towards her side or being empathetic to her point of view, but it's very sophomore. It's very childish, you know, even as much as I dislike Johnny Depp. Johnny Dump, it doesn't tickle me either, but I have been using it. And speaking of this, it's worth noting that the bed-shitting accusation was a lie. Even the UK courts determined it was likely a lie. I should say it's probably a lie. Only Johnny and Amber really know But I strongly suspect it's a lie because just like he did in the UK courts about headbutting her, Johnny is capable of this thing called lying. He does it a lot to make himself look favorable in the eyes of the public. Shocking, I know. So this lie was his abusive attempt to humiliate her publicly. It worked. But know that poop humor is his thing. You know, pooping on yourself and needing changing is also his thing. Wanting to do poop pranks, his thing. He has like several texts where he is established to have that as a sense of humor. Not Amber, but of course that is a very easy way to humiliate anyone, especially a woman, I think. And it's funny, you can just say a thing as a man with no proof, and people say, you know, we should look at all the facts first. They don't really mean these things. These are these things as I get older, I've learned people don't really care about all these mantras they say. The facts don't care about your feelings, you know. We should, you know, always look at the facts before we make our conclusions. People just say that, I think, most of the time to when they have that bias of wanting to defend specifically, usually a man who has been accused of something bad. That's where those beliefs get feigned the most. People are more than willing to believe negative stories about women. They kind of always have, without any proof. So it's lies, it's game. It's part of the whole men run game. They do this thing, ladies, called running game. They say things that they don't really believe to make you behave a certain way that is beneficial for them. Men lie all the time. Men lie about abuse. And now this whole thing has enabled men to further lie about abuse. I just saw someone say that Princess Diana was the Amber Heard of her day. I just saw that on a video, under a video of like, it was a curtsying compilation on Instagram, and it was a compilation of royal wives and daughters who have done that curtsy for the queen, and Camilla was a part of it, and a lot of people were like, ew, why is Camilla there? And then a couple people are like, she's great, and their opinions are very popular, but one of them was like, when you think about it, Diana was actually the Camilla, or Diana was actually the Amber Heard of her day, and meaning this as a negative, as a pejorative, and it's just like, oh, it's happening. And I'm seeing that. I saw that with Meghan. That one is more obvious. There are people who literally make content loudly declaring Amber Heard and Meghan Markle to be basically the same. I think they do share that thing of being disproportionately victimized for very unclear crimes, quote-unquote crimes, or mild crimes compared to the level of ire. In the case of Amber Heard, she definitely hit Depp back. Anyway, so that was just worth noting. The biggest thing of note, though, is how Depp wasn't even sleeping in that bedroom when this incident happened, supposedly, happened, and it looks like dog poop, and in the picture you can see a dog footprint. It's just, it's one of those things where people, even if they don't believe it, they're gonna do that thing that right-wingers consistently do, that men consistently do, that Meghan Markle haters do. It's like all the groups that I'm on the opposite side of, that racists consistently do. They will lie. They will spread a lie that is negative, that they even know that they feel is a lie, that they don't believe. They'll spread something they don't believe, as long as it slanders the other person. So they don't have to believe that she pooped in bed. It's just fun to call this stupid C word who dared to come against their favorite pirate Amber Turd. It's humiliating. It's mean. So they're going to do it whether they believe it or not. And they're going to hide behind, the misogynist will hide behind, oh, it's, she did it. That's why I'm calling her it. Yeah. You would have taken any opportunity to put her down. And this is just an excuse. Now he gave you a thing to say. Yeah.
I don't know. It's like a relatively complex case. I mean, there's just like layers to it, right? And like devastation on both sides. Like he lost his career, and she, I guess, is lying. I don't really know, right? I was like captivated by this fucking. I don't know, like seeing him on the stand do anything.
Yeah,
is cool. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know who's gonna win this. That's up to the jury.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it looks like she's like fucking lying for sure.
Yeah.
Well, gee, I can't imagine why it might look like she's lying to casually misogynistic Depp fanboys. Proper mystery, that is. It's almost like they have some kind of bias. Why do I get the feeling that Cody and friend have never strongly believed a woman and have never strongly had vibes that a man was lying? And funny too how he goes, it's not really clear. He can't tell if she's lying because he's trying to do the impartiality thing where he pretends to like be impartial, but it's a ruse. And half of it, he's tricking himself. Half of it, he's just being dishonest with his audience because, like, most men are inclined to favor their side, their sex, and they don't want to come off as too dickish about it and too, obviously misogynistic, so they, will play that, oh, who knows, I'm just watching this thing, it's crazy how it's happening, she maybe she's lying, maybe she's not, then it's like, they tell on themselves, if you let them talk long enough, this didn't take long at all, because then immediately he's like, because, it's hard to know who's telling the truth. We don't know, but she's definitely lying. She's definitely lying. It's like switch up because it just sounds too bad to say the truth in situations like this. Like Amber never stood a chance with the male bias that pervades society. Not with the untrained general population being tasked to do the decision making here against this backdrop of a circus of a show trial involving this highly beloved male figure and celebrity who was undoubtedly benefiting from this either organic or manufactured or mixture of both online smear campaign where a lot of Gen Z people especially partook in just attacking and humiliating his opponent in a way that we've never seen before ever for anyone who's been accused of anything. Certainly no men who've been accused of heinous things who are currently doing heinous things have never gotten anything close to the Amber Heard treatment as far as public scrutiny goes, which is odd to say the least. I mean, it's odd if you don't factor in the power of misogyny, but if you consider how that's been a ruling force in the world forever, it fits perfectly, and it's just a very sad norm. But it's only women who bring out this level of taunting and rage in people, if you'll notice. No matter how heinous a man's actions are, no matter throughout history how bad it's been with men no matter how harmful their behavior has been. It just doesn't blow back on them as a sex, really. Not really. And it doesn't ever get scrutinized quite at this level. You know, even Hitler has fanboys. Like, if you go into any World War II, I was just arguing with one of them a few months ago. It was someone arguing that it's disrespectful to call Hitler a coward. Then I was in the, no, he's a coward side of things. I was on that side. And then I had several guys come at me like, no, it's like, it's weird, but it's not. That Hitler has, you know, stronger, more vocal fan base, fanboys than Amber Heard. That, I don't, yeah. You know, it was like nothing short of video evidence of Depp beating Heard was gonna get Amber out of this. And that's what played out. Not, again, when you're dealing with the general population, that's how it's likely gonna play out. When it's the untrained, easily influenced, already biased because it's a celebrity, male celebrity on top of that. It's just, you know, that's a real thing, the way parasocial relationships work, the way people find men in general so endearing, but especially men who have a special place in your heart because of pop culture. It's like thing on top of thing stacked against Amber, or anyone who's accusing him, to be fair. If a man accused Depp, they would struggle to be believed as well, I believe. Which we're kind of already seeing, because there is someone who he is alleged to have assaulted, who he's about to go to trial to defend himself from that allegation as well. And people already doing the Team Depp kind of thing. Not as, you know, obviously not as intensely, but it's there. So, you know, men have to face off with powerful men too, but, you know, that doesn't matter. That, like, those little things where you try to, you know, get men to feel something by saying men are affected too, that, like, never works. It's like, because men know, like, statistically they're fine. It's like, overwhelmingly they benefit from this, from the perception that men can be abused too in this way, that an obvious misogynist, an obvious bad guy can be the victim. This benefits men ultimately, and so that is more powerful than, you know, if Depp has to take out a few men in the process, or if any man in Depp's position would have to take out a few men in the process. Men will easily, quickly, with the swiftness, sacrifice other men to bolster a primary man. So that's not even a thing. It's just so, it's a commonly gone to thing, but it's not powerful at all or useful at all when people try to do that. Like, he's their favorite pirate. He's their favorite pirate. And you'd have to do something akin to, like, breaking the male charm spell to get the masses on her side over his. And that wasn't going to happen.
But, you know, I'm just watching it. Like, he's so, like, eloquent, but not really. Yeah, like, he's so, like, eloquent, but not really. Just, he's like an artist, you can just tell. You know?
It's just that voice.
I watched him for like an hour before they even turned the sound on the broadcast. Before they even started the courtroom. It was just him sitting there on the stand for an hour.
And you were tapped in?
I tapped in. I had it up on my second monitor.
But you won't watch Batman.
It's just like, how does one even compete with that? You know, it's like hypnosis. It's like being under a spell. If you are the opponent of someone this powerful, who captivates so effortlessly, how do you even stand a chance in the court of public opinion? And we are a very easily biased species. So it just, the inability of people to be honest in acknowledging that at a minimum, it's just very dishonest.
I just feel like it's such a high profile case.
Like, this dude has not...
Like, don't you think all the social media and everything could sway the jurors?
Yes, of course. It almost certainly did. The jury wasn't even sequestered, so how could it not? They would do their jury duty and then come home and be free to consume everything all of us were consuming in the news, on YouTube, on social media. Like, if you are even a little bit inclined to be biased for men, for Johnny specifically, for celebrities, it was just a lost cause for Amber's side with a mostly male jury and women. I mean, God, there were pictures of women outside the courtroom saying the creepiest stuff on signs. It was so reminiscent of this documentary I watched about Jeffrey Dahmer's... Was it Jeffrey Dahmer? It was some famous murderer and his, like, groupies, how they just refused to accept that he was bad, and then the ones who did accept that he was bad said, but he's still cute. And I just... There's, like, worms in a lot of women's brains. So there were only 2 of them in the jury, and then the rest were guys, and it was just the wrong conclusion was drawn. And I know Cody made this, obviously, if it's not clear, before the jury reached its verdict. Yeah, it is annoying though how he acknowledges this. He acknowledges this way. He even seemingly unwittingly admits it earlier, how hypnotized he is by Depp, but then no like critical thinking after that. Just like, yeah, I'm hypnotized by him. Yeah, the jury is probably gonna be impacted by this media circus, but still good for our boy. It's just no scruples. And why would you? It doesn't benefit you to have them. It kind of doesn't benefit men to have scruples when it comes to stuff like this. So it takes, like, really strong character and a strong sense of decency to do what's right as a guy in situations like this. Which is not something most guys have, I don't think.
I mean, his agent probably worked it out. I mean, he hasn't done a movie in a while, so this would probably be good to...
Yeah, I think it will be.
Oh, yeah.
I think this motherfucker's going to get cast in everything after this.
Nah, dude, that... I don't even know what's going... I just know that she's a bad person and she's hit him a few times. So,
Noel, or Noel here, says that he's just sure that Amber is a bad person. You know, despite earlier saying that he's not even following the trial. But he just knows that she's a bad person. How? How could he know that? Why is the idea of Amber placating Johnny or hitting him out of self-defense not even considered? I mean, I kind of know why. I presume why is that male bias, that misogynistic bias. Because through this, the little drips and drabs that have been revealed at that point, it was also pretty clear that he was a bad person. So why would you just say that you know he's, or you know she's a bad person, and not have that same feeling for him, at least the same, if not more, because it's actually not clear if she is a bad person. At that point during the trial, you could argue ignorance, though. That's reasonable. You could argue that you don't know, you can't tell if she's being honest or not. That's fair. But it's also like everything applies to him. Everything you could say about her applies to him, but more so. And he's said things that are pretty clearly markers of a bad person, very misogynistic, evil things that you will get into, that you alluded to knowing about already, and then comments, oh, it's not fun anymore. Like, that's near the end of this clip. But yeah, the stuff about wanting to R-word her, or R-word specifically her burnt corpse, like, that's bad person rhetoric, right? That's a marker of a bad person. Bad people say shit like that. And like not wanting her to work, wanting her to quit her job and not pursue acting anymore so she could be more dependent on him. That's also a marker of not just a bad person, but an abusive person, an abusive male partner is who does stuff like that, who's like trying to get his wife to not work, getting jealous whenever she's even doing a scene with another man. That's abusive guy stuff. That's bad person stuff. But most of the ire, most of the negativity during the trial, after the trial, was painting her as the purely bad one, and Depp not just as complicated, which would have been annoying enough, but extremely sympathetic and fully the victim. And poor Johnny, and I hope he can heal. And like all these girls just going gushy, mushy, over empathizing with an abusive, misogynistic guy, and saying stuff like, oh, poor Depp, I hope he can get his life back after this. What are you talking about? And this thing in women, it's so gross and so unwise, because it's just so unreciprocated. Guys don't ever feel this way, even with clear female victims. Like, guys don't say this about, or didn't say this, and like overwhelmingly wouldn't say this about even like an obvious clear-cut victim like Rihanna of Chris Brown. They wouldn't be saying, oh, I hope she can get back together, or get herself back together, and I'm wishing the best for her. Like, that's not a sentiment you'll see that often, but you see it so often in comments by women, or in comment sections for Depp, is women with this sweetness to a fault, this kindness and empathy to a fault. And it's male kindness, it's kindness, it's male specific kindness. You don't really see this because it's mean too. It's like, it's the kind to the man, and then very, very hateful of the woman, like intensely hateful in a way, again, I don't think I really ever see, or I know from like personal experience, I've never seen with the intensity of hate, this intensity of hate directed towards male abusers, where the abuse is more clear cut, where the crimes are more heinous, more like objectively heinous. Again, taking it to an extreme, but like Putin, because he is in the zeitgeist. He is someone who is a topic of conversation, a person of interest at the moment, and has been for like the last several months since invading Ukraine, right? And there's an online conversation happening about him, or there was, kind of, and it wasn't this angry. So he is a direct comparison in how people talk about a bad man versus how people talk about an allegedly bad woman. and it's very frightening. And I mean, it's always been this way, but that's the problem. You'd think it would have changed, but I mean, it just not really. There's always been some element of feminist. There's always been someone trying to advocate for female people. That's what feminism is advocacy for female people. So that presence there's always been a tiny bit of them, but it seems to be relatively just as tiny percentage wise. Like there's a lot more, but that's just because there's a lot more people, in the world. But it seems like it's about the same percentage of people who actually try to advocate for and have empathy for women who are alleging they've been through something traumatic, like what Amber has described. But as old as we are, as old as humans are, is this thing of women over-identifying with men in a way men seldom do with them, and women just take it. And just, it's this thing I've noticed too, like looking through Jubilee videos, looking through cut videos, just anytime there's a man, it's like the women are so nice. Women are just like, oh, he's a king, he's so sweet, and oh, I can't believe he went through that. And it's just so warm, and that's just like all my life is versions of that. Women just have endlessly sweet things to say about men, despite the patterns of male violence and the horrible, horrible things men routinely do. It's not like a rarity. They routinely do horrible things. Meanwhile, in spaces where it's like male dominant, like under a Joe Rogan video, it like if a topic of women comes up, it's so negative. Men are always, usually, I want to say always, like maybe the exceptions are maybe like gay men, like bigging up an icon like a Beyonce or a Lady Gaga. Those are like the exceptions, but overwhelmingly, if like just the topic in general of women comes up online, it's negative. Like I can't even recall even one time seeing women be brought up as a topic and men not just going in and having a roast fest about how much they despise women. And it's just, when you notice it, you can't unsee it. It's that kind of thing. It's like now the things I used to partake in, which is the I did used to be he's such a king. Oh, that guy, he's so sweet. The way he said that one little thing, and now I'm putty in his hands, just overpraising this strange man just because he seems kind of nice and said something kind of funny or relatable. Because I realized, I mean, I used to be that, and then I'm not really that anymore, because I noticed this is very one-sided. Like, men don't really ever do this. They don't gush about girls being cool and sweet and funny just because she said one cool thing. It's really quite the opposite. The energy they feel, it's like, there are exceptions, of course. There are men who are very sweet, decent men, kind to women, and I even recognize it's so easy. It's still in me that turning into putty for a decent guy, because and then I get so protective of that guy, and I feel bad even talking like this because it's like I don't want to offend the good guy. But I mean, mostly I'm over it too, because these things need to be said. They need to be, because they're true, and if it's just too obvious of a thing to ignore, and it's too problematic of a thing in our world to pretend doesn't exist, just because I don't want to hurt the good guy's feelings, and that's like how a lot of women operate. And that too, that like men are so much less likely to care about hurting the feelings of the masses of women. They'll just say blanket statements. I remember going through that phase of like constantly chiding men, like, you wouldn't want us to do that. Like, this was just like 7-8 years ago on YouTube. I remember commenting that so much because it would hurt when I would see, like, I would be stupid enough to enter and stay in these misogynistic spaces, and the men would say these blanket statements, and I would be like, not all women feel, and they just would have no regard. They are so good at being callous. Men are just, they're better at being callous. They don't care that you're hurting, or sorry, that they're hurting your feelings, that they're hurting women's feelings. They don't care most of the time. Most of them don't care. They'll just say the thing. Women are gold diggers. Women are not capable of loving themselves or loving anyone but themselves. You know, so all that to say, the issue that is so prevalent is that men who oppose the accusations of a woman usually get the benefit of the doubt. If he's challenging her, most people are gonna, I mean, a lot of times, especially if it's a celebrity man or male, or because boys too, they something, they don't even have to say anything, they don't have to actually challenge it, but my god, if they challenge it, if they deny the accusation, they do get a huge heaping helping, a huge heap of help, or whatever. They get a huge amount of benefit of doubt by the masses. Meanwhile, women exist in this realm of being sort of doubted by default. It's like we haven't come very far. And I remember what dominated my childhood regarding crimes against women, especially sex crimes, was this doubt thing. This, like, it was prevalent in the 90s and the aughts, where police officers would be the ones to ask you when you're being brave enough to even report a crime that a man committed against you. They would be the ones to say, well, how much did you have to drink? What were you wearing? And stuff like that. And they still do this. And this idea that, oh, women are just always believed, and men too. Well, men lie too. You know, men can be victims of abuse, and men can lie about abuse too. There wasn't this really ever this great, grand time for women where they just were always believed. There was always doubt. People always doubt them. People always distrust them. This framing women as untrustworthy is as old as the Bible, older, as old as the Quran, as old as humanity, I think. But it's in the Quran, it's in the Bible, it's in the Torah, that there are these elements that all encourage distrusting the female sex. So this idea that women just, you know, they're just so believed. No, women are constantly framed in the world as manipulative and liars and needing, like, what, 3-4 witnesses for their testimony to be believed, shit like that. It's game, this thing where men have convinced women that they actually have the upper hand in being believed. It's game. They don't believe you usually. Like, wake up.
Yeah,
that's all I know.
That's what it sounds like.
I don't want to be glib if she's like a bad person.
I guess I don't know what he means by glib here. It almost sounds like he meant to say something more like funny, because glib, it wouldn't really matter that she's a bad person. Or I don't see how that would be connected to wanting to avoid being glib. I don't know. It seems like he used the wrong word, or because it just kind of doesn't make sense the way he used it. But just again, this just makes me want to stress the whole Johnny is bad. He's the bad person, and if you're trying to avoid being glib because a bad person is involved, you already definitely have Johnny, because he's still using if for Amber, and that is, even though he just said he knows she's a bad person, but then I don't want to be glib if she's a bad person. It's hard to articulate, but yeah. So Johnny is definitely the bad person. So avoid being glib for that reason. Avoid going on about something you don't know about for that reason, or avoid making light of it with jokes. Because I think maybe people think glib means that, to be like funny, cheeky. Because I did kind of think it meant cheeky or like confidently wrong or something. But yeah, it just, this situation is nothing to make light of, and I feel like people are even able to make the jokes they're making because they don't really believe, like, Depp was abused. It's all about the thing driving everyone is hatred for Amber. Like, no one, I don't think most people see, well, then there's the woman faction who does seem to believe Depp is a victim and they're over empathizing with him, but I don't think men really do. Like, men know, like, for a man to be abused properly, really, truly, in a way they would agree with his abuse, is, like, almost impossible. And I don't think they really see him as an abuse victim. This is a gotcha for feminists, and it's a gotcha to feminists by misogynists. It's just, for most of the men who are in the pro Johnny camp, because again, at the very least, you should be anti both of them. Like, Johnny is clearly a very bad guy, a misogynistic guy, and so there's really no reason to support him. But that's our culture, where misogyny is just a casual, normal part of it, and a man being misogynistic or a misogynist is not, it doesn't disqualify him from anything. I mean, there's a whole genre of music that, like, revels in being openly misogynistic, and it's highly celebrated. Eminem was and remains this legend who is highly celebrated despite his open contempt for women and open disrespect of them. And it's just normal. Girls grow up with that, and it's just considered a normal part of existence that you have to endure, and if you don't, you are the annoying and uncool one, the stick in the mud for not letting the boys have their fun at your expense. And it's like, culturally, man-hating is the lame, bad thing that makes you evil, even though, man, I kind of wanted to make a video, because the more I thought about it, I would always, like, balk at the idea of being seen as a misandrist. I just had a coughing fit. But yeah, the more I thought about it, the more I found that there's actually, like, a logical sort of argument for being a misandrist, which sounds bad, but, like, I don't know, if you're from a subjugated group and you have negative feelings about your oppressor, your historic oppressor, I think that's natural. And I think women are sort of dehumanized in a way where they're discouraged from feeling natural feelings. Like, if someone from a group has historically oppressed you, and then currently kind of still is, like, certainly throughout the world, but in, like, even in the Western world, in more covert ways, and just, like, there's this open culture of unapologetic misogyny, and if you grow up with that, like, I think most girls just take it, and they just are socialized to take it on the chin from guys, and accept that guys are gonna call them hoes and whores and sluts and every misogynistic slur, and that's just a normal part of existence as a girl. But if you don't like that, if you balk against it, basically, it's almost unavoidable to have some negative residual feelings about men. Like, if you're just a thinking person, it's gonna happen. And then you have to figure out how to cope and deal with that. But to feel the feelings is it seems pretty natural, and it seems almost instinctual on some level, like to even just be wary of men because they're always theoretically potentially dangerous, you know? You're not a mind reader. You can't know which ones are good and which ones are safe to be around and which ones are like conning you or have ill intentions, and it's not rare enough of a thing to just not care. And like, it's funny because the world doesn't even operate that way. Like, men forever, excuse me, fathers, most fathers and mothers stay like being protective, particularly of their daughters, against men, you know? And it's like this weird thing where we acknowledge it in that way, that men are kind of unsafe and scary and potentially harmful, but like, you can't explicitly say that because men will feel offended. But we act like that, and we're aware of that danger and how men pose a danger to each other. We're very aware of male violence as a norm in society and the world, and as a pattern in men, that there's a certain amount of it you can expect and have to be wary of and try your best to avoid while you live on this planet. But we like can't really explicitly talk about it because men get very offended and feel attacked and targeted when you acknowledge that. Certainly that's the issue for the trans discussions, is like, there's this idea because a male person identifies as a woman, they're no longer unsafe to be around, and they no longer have all of the threatening things about them that men who know they're men do. It doesn't even make sense that would be a thing, because just the male body is just it can be a weapon, and it's like naturally sort of built to be a weapon, and that can go in either direction. And I guess depending on who's talking, who's the good guy in a fight is always debatable, right? But it's used to defend, and it's used to assault and start the shit. And then, like, now I'm like kind of off topic, but then too, I mean, like, every response eventually veers into just me talking about this as a broader issue: male violence, male misogyny. But yeah, men have their weapon on their person. They have their muscles that are, they're stronger than the vast majority, like almost all women and girls, and then they're stronger than most prepubescent boys, and then they're stronger than most elderly men, so they're stronger than like most people, and that strength alone makes them potentially a threat. And then on top of that, they have the weapon, their penis, which can always be used as a weapon, and it has been. That's not like, I don't know, maybe that sounds silly, but it's really not. That's just a fact of human existence. Men can weaponize their genitals. They do. That's what rape is. Or male on female rape, or male on anyone, I guess. Male on male rape is that too. So this pretending that that's not an issue. Yeah, I really got off topic with this particular portion that I was responding to. But I guess to tie it all together, I don't know, men can be unsafe and very openly misogynistic and objectifying of women, and it's annoying and scary and sad how this is acknowledged in our society, but also not, in a way. How we can be very aware of this dynamic and pattern in men and social norm for men and boys, and then also sort of deny it constantly. So a man like Johnny Depp can be a bad man, and it's sort of normalized and fine for him to be bad and openly misogynistic or be privately misogynistic, and it's not really, he doesn't really get pushback. It's very minimal. It's just the like a feminist who everyone already dislikes, or most people, and it's just like, it's not a deal breaker at all. You know, from like Snoop Dogg to Eminem to any guy, any guy of any at any tier, but like a bunch of YouTubers, like they can just be openly disrespectful and hostile towards women and girls, and it's fine. It's like normal. It's bro talk. It's locker room talk. It's girls just, you know, they're raised from a young age to accept that and expect that, and and even like what crazily shamed for pushing back against it as, you know, an annoying feminist or feminazi, right? Because like having self-respect or not wanting your sex to be disrespected is like, it's like kind of one of the worst things to do as a woman, because you're like interfering with guys having fun at your expense. So even if it's at your expense, even if their fun is objectifying and dehumanizing women and girls, you have to like, you're shamed into taking it, or risk being socially ostracized and considered annoying, and the women will come after you too for it. The men don't have to work alone in that way. There are a bunch of willing handmaidens, pick-me's, hops, helpers of patriarchy. I got that from Leah Taverley. Whatever you want to call them, there's always a bunch of them. So many. And the men know this. They kind of pretend they don't. They'll rail against women, they'll rail against feminism, when most women are like on their side and forever in their camp, on their team, and they know that. You know, it's the most annoying thing to be in those red pill spaces where they act like feminism is such a problem for them, when like most women are like, they're not, they don't quite go as extreme as red pillers do, but they're pretty anti-woman in these like subtle and subconscious ways, and pretty extreme with how critical they are of women, and pretty biased in how they tend to side with men. And you know, they've got the world at their feet. men men have the world at their feet, and so much female support. Overwhelmingly women support them in all their endeavors, and always have. History is women overwhelmingly just following men's lead, however terrible, however good, but also however terrible. And it's not enough. It's not enough for a lot of men. It's, you know, they want like proper male supremacy. It's very scary out here for women and girls.
It's definitely, it's really cool that Johnny's back on TV.
Yeah. It worked for me, dude. I'm telling you. I'm sitting there like, God, everything this guy says, it's like, you can tell why he's such a revered actor.
Because he's just good at talking.
He's just good at talking.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, though. I feel like that also kind of like sways like, it just makes it easier for you to believe him, you know?
Because he's just good at talking.
He's just good at talking.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, though. I feel like that also kind of like sways like, it just makes it easier for you to believe him, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's his fucking career.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here's that bro thing that is just, it's so powerful. The comment, Johnny's back on TV, ha ha ha. It's like male loyalty is undefeated. It's very powerful. And I envy it. Women have nothing like that. Women are like the opposite. There's no sisterhood really. And they're all in, it's just awful. And men, are, on the other hand, they can make any dynamic work and they will unite for their best interest. Even the good ones will mostly stay quiet, about the bad ones. And they don't throw each other away, They don't throw each other away over misogyny. Even though Depp at this point was proven to be a misogynist, that doesn't matter. Like, men never throw each other away over misogynists. Women will be the first to throw a woman away and attack a woman over, like, misandry or perceived misandry. Even the accusation of abuse, women are, like, first in line to, like, to just harangue her. And men are just the opposite. They're the opposites in this way. They're socialized the opposite, and it's beneficial for men to be this way, this bro-y way, where, oh, Depp's a misogynist? Well, I'm glad to see him back on TV. And while women are like, she said what to him? Cut off. She's not our sister anymore. I don't know why I changed my voice. But yeah, it sucks. That's just every time I see any version of this bro-y camaraderie or like affection for guys, very flawed guys, that guys will maintain no matter how flawed, pretty much. It makes me envious and sad because women are completely lacking in anything resembling that. Women are extremely critical of women. If you commit a flaw, if you commit a sin, you're like out. You're hated. And men are just not like that. And it sucks on this side. And yeah, he is perceived as good at talking by those with a male bias, and his very biased fan base. It's a very difficult thing to convict. Abuse, sexual assault, rape, these things are very difficult to get convictions for. So you're already dealing with that. And then when it is a man versus a woman, there is an element of distrust that is just kind of always there with women. And it's, again, this very ancient thing for all women, all races, all cultures. The big three in monotheistic religions, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, they all have rhetoric that frames women as untrustworthy, and people just absorb this. Even atheists absorb this, and it's just a broadly cultural thing. And anywhere there's women and men, so everywhere. And it's just, it goes unacknowledged. People act on it, feel it, and that's the thing. And it's really difficult when it's these unspoken, intangible things that impact how we view others and impact how we treat others and interpret others. We have these biases that make like body language experts, for example, have very prejudicial assessments of women. For them, when you already have a basis of not trusting and of, relegating this type of human to like the witch faction of society, and it just takes one little irritation to be against her. And sometimes she doesn't even have to speak. It can just be her face. It can just be, I keep saying this, but this is important. It's psyops, even if it's not intentional. The way we all grew up with seeing a million different versions of women and girls who look like Amber, as the bad guy in a million different movies, TV shows, this mean girl character. She could play one. She has the look we've all been brainwashed. Again, I don't know that it's intentional, but it's a thing regardless of its intent. We've all been watching this forever. So it's that additional layer of distrust. She looks like a mean girl. She looks like she would be cast as a mean girl. She also looks like a beautiful woman, and this is why the thing about pretty privilege, I don't know, because women being female kind of negates pretty privilege in a lot of ways. But the point is, it works against her so quickly, so easily against any woman. It's like it's just, people are just so uncharitable, and they go out of their way when you are a targeted woman. When you have any level of flaw, it's just an uphill battle, and and the hill is like the steepest it could ever be. It's a climb even. Like, I can't even imagine, honestly, a version of events where she is sided with, because even before that tape or that recording came out, I was arguing with people constantly whenever, like on Facebook, whenever like it was whenever under any article about Amber Heard and Johnny Depp's situation, it was overwhelmed with Depp fans. I wish I had the foresight to take screenshots. So I don't know that I'd share them, because that like had my full government name and everyone else's full government name, because it was Facebook. And I just recall being completely outnumbered with the likes. Their comments got more likes. This was back in like 2016. He was overwhelmingly supported. She was overwhelmingly vilified and assumed a gold-digging liar because she got any amount of money, even though the money she got, the $7 million she got, I really wish she hadn't pledged it to anything. She should have just kept it. Of course, I know, like, those recordings, what they taught me about her character, she's like one of those tough girls. She's like, you hit me, you beat me, and I take it like a woman. And, I do this little hitting you back, and you're a baby about it. Like, like, that's her energy. And that's probably why she loved playing mirror. She's that kind of woman who's like tough girl, tough woman. And it completely works against you to have that personality, to be that, I don't care about your money, because money's important. It makes the world go round, doesn't it? She was entitled to like $35 million, and she didn't fight for it. And her lawyer even was very upset, because lawyers, they get a chunk, so they want the max. And she was like, no, I want to do this and be done. And it doesn't matter. You're still a gold digger to them. Of course she wouldn't know that. She, like, another thing I gleaned from the recordings is how she's like the Deptford wife. Like, I don't want to, not that lowly, but she did share the thing that the fans, you can see in the fans now. She's like worshipped this man. She like adored him. The way she was texting her parents and how shocked she was at his actual personality, his abuses, his gross and erratic and creepy and messed up behavior. And she's like so disappointed in, the thing, like what she got. Like, there's what she imagined it would be like to be with him versus what it was like. And it's like, this could be any of the women who are standing outside of that courtroom. This could be any of them who are like putting him on this pedestal, thinking he's a god, and then they actually date him. They would be Amber 2.0, because it's like, this is not a good man to date. He's a misogynist. He doesn't respect women. You're T and A to him. He'll call you every misogynistic slur when he's upset with you. He will aggress upon you. He's aggressive. He's not in his right mind, especially when he's high. And he's often high. He's often not sober. And they're like, the bias too in the reporting was so strong. They just never had a bad word to say about him, even though it was revealed that he did so much bad shit. And it's like, you're clearly not being objective, or you would be calling him out too. So the way these two guys just sit up here completely amused by the whole situation, it's just fucking maddening. It's frustrating, and this is just so normal. And then this gaslighting thing happens after these things happen, and while this shit is the norm in our world, where they just pretend, no, it isn't, the thing that's happening isn't happening, misogyny isn't real. Infuriating. It's infuriating. The way that people casually don't respect or take seriously women is infuriating, and it's dangerous, and it's terrifying. That like two bros can just sit and laugh and automatically side with this man who has been revealed to be a misogynist. That is not taken seriously. It never has been. Misogyny, that's how Eminem could be so popular. It was even like a bonus. It was like a good thing in people's eyes, a positive about him, how much he despised women. It just, women are so, God, women are so foolish. That's me putting it nicely. Just overwhelmingly filled with fools of the female sex who just don't get it, don't see the connections, and I don't know how you wake women up. I really don't.
Well, he's on trial for abuse.
Yeah. No, he's on trial. No, this isn't for abuse. This is defamation.
Oh, she's suing him?
He's suing her.
He's suing her.
Yes.
Got it.
Because he's like, it's not true what you said about me.
And this is the problem. This represents most people completely clueless about the case, but somehow still fervently Team Depp. There's that male bias for you.
Oh. And what did
she accused him of abuse.
Okay.
So he lost Captain Jack Sparrow.
Ugh, look at that spin and lack of accountability for their guy. Actually, what he lost was the court case in the UK where he was determined to have abused Amber Heard like 12 times out of her 14 allegations. And his loss of roles were his own drunken cokehead fault. Like, it was determined that his loss of roles were from his worsening work ethic. And I will link the article in the description. I will link articles and citations for everything I've said in the description, actually.
He lost all of his movie roles. Career basically hit the shitter.
Yeah.
And he was like, it's not true. Basically, what happened was you took a whole bunch of videos of me in order to make this case and make it seem like I was abusing you when really you were abusing me the whole time. And I lost my career because of it. Wow. I think that's right? That's the gist?
No, wrong. Depp was not the victim in that dynamic. He wasn't. He had the power in every way, the physical advantage, the social advantage, the experience advantage, the age advantage. This thing is so annoying. The way people routinely overlook women's age, there is a natural immaturity to being young. That's part of what it means, is when you are young, you are naturally less experienced, more susceptible to your emotions, more, it's easier to bring the worst out of you, which this is another thing. That's this, all of what I've said, it's connected too to how there's a perception of women where they are the Jezebels, they are the influencers of men, never the reverse, even though the real world is filled with the reverse. I would say a majority of the time, men constantly influence women. So much of what women are, what they do, how they act, who they side with is an influence by men on women, even to a large degree, how they dress, how they choose to look, how they what's the word, how they groom, meaning hair. Like, men are the bigger influencers. They are the sirens more often. But that role, siren, it's, what do you think of women? It's a bunch of women who lead the men into rocks, because men have been in charge of the narrative since forever. Men know how stupid, crazy, dumb they get when they're horny, and they like turn that into the end all be all of influence, even though it's just a moment. And it doesn't, like, why, like, look at how much women have had to fight for basic human rights, and still fight in many parts of the world for basic human rights, and somehow it's still, the game is still so successful in making women, because it successfully has made women and girls believe that women are these sirens. They're like naturally sirens, and men, they're just helpless little boys all the time, and they're just in power because, I don't know, sheer luck. Like we live in this patriarchy, and most countries do, and most always have, because why? Because men are just so influenced by women. And the point I'm trying to like get to here is how there's this insidious, ugly, misogynistic thing where a woman's age, a girl's age, is not considered part of her. It's like, it's this dehumanizing thing that is done to girls, where her age is not considered part of her vulnerability, because girls and women just exist to be the ones who, with the influence, with the sirens of any situation, no matter their age. So Amber being 22, it doesn't matter. Like, girls being 9, again, in Iran, 9-year-olds. 9 is the age of accountability for girls legally, and 15 for boys. It's 15. And this, again, not unique to, I mean, they're unique in putting it in law, enshrining that in law, but this idea is universal. The way people hold girls more accountable than men. There's that one story where this 12-year-old was gang raped, and the lawyer famously said, this was like a couple years ago, it was like maybe 10 years ago, where the lawyer famously said that she was a spider who lured these men into her web. Like, like, people are appalled, and rightfully so, and a lot of people were, but that idea, the people who think like that, they're not rare, and people who think like there will be people who are appalled by that, but they believe a version of that, where they do believe girls are mature faster. They do believe girls know what they're doing. Oh, she knew what she was doing. That is such a common idea. So her humanity is not considered. The natural part of being human, where you are more stupid, you are more naive. You're the one who's easily conned, easier to influence, because you are young and less experienced, as Amber was, as girls younger than her routinely are, not considered. Throw that away, is this common idea in the world. And I will say that does happen, I think, most often to black girls. That needs to be said, because this is one of the very important, crucial, I would say, elements of this dynamic between Amber and Depp, where he's calling her kid. He's very aware of their dynamic. He's very aware of how much older he is, how much more experienced he is, but it's not even on the table of consideration, her age. It's not even like that. She might have acted more immaturely than she would, if she were fucking older, like people naturally do. Humans naturally are more mature as they mature in age. And that is not considered. Women and girls are not given that grace of being a little less naturally, biologically mature because of their age. That is just, it doesn't stop the villainy. It doesn't stop the vilification. And this is another element that, you know, you just go out here, you send your girls out here into this world of manipulative men, and that is a common thing, a common way for men to be, and that is why they so often chase the younger girls and women, and it's just not acknowledged. It's not treated seriously that he had the experience advantage here, in addition to the physical advantage because he is a man, in addition to the power advantage, and more specifically the social power advantage, because he's fucking Johnny Depp. He had everything. He had bodyguards. He had endless people. Like, him telling her not to work, him saying to her, you need to stop working because it makes me jealous. That's not the victim. Victims don't do shit like that. That's the old predatory man being an abuser. That's what that is. He is not a victim in any sense. Like, hot take, you can't be the victim when you are a combination of the more physically stronger one and the more socially powerful one and aware of yourself. Like, he's not mentally handicapped here, and you are the one who has endless money at your disposal, so you're not like financially dependent on a woman who could financially abuse you. You're not, there's no room for abuse here. He had fully, in every way, the power in this relationship. Abuse where? She didn't even cut his finger. That was a lie. The doctor on the stand, and like the jury, the people commenting, making videos, just blah 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 with this. But there was a doctor on the stand who said the way he describes the way she severed his finger makes no sense. There was no glass found in his hand. It wasn't realistic, and to sane people with no bias, it wasn't believable. Like, the judge determined it wasn't believable, that accusation. But a bunch of Depp fans who couldn't even figure out how to fill out the form they had to fill out when they were rendering a verdict, they're not smart. These are just street people. These are just random pirate. Okay. These are just random people off the street. They're not experts. They're not trained to be impartial. They were not sequestered even. They were seeing everything that I was trying to avoid seeing. They were seeing all these videos calling her crazy. And that go-to thing of calling women crazy. She just had everything, every disadvantage during this trial, every disadvantage before this trial. And it's game, ladies. This is how abusers further get the upper hand. Now men can just say, oh, I was the one abused. Abusive men can say this. You've given them yet another out. It was already so hard for female DV victims. And now you've given because it is a gender thing. That's another thing that kept going around, like, abuse has no gender. Yes, it fucking does. It's like a 9-to-1 here. Women are overwhelmingly the victims of domestic violence. Men are overwhelmingly the perpetrators of domestic violence. And their violence is more deadly, significantly more deadly. It is gender. There is a gendered pattern to DV. So it's just objectively wrong to say abuse has no, oh God. And it's like mostly women, well, not mostly, but at least half of the people parroting that are women. Just foolish, clueless, stupid women. Just like shooting their own gender in the foot, just backstabbing mindlessly, making it extra difficult for women to be believed, for women to have any level of of a foundation socially when they make these allegations. No code, no sisterhood, or very, very minimal sisterhood. And it's only gonna hurt our daughters. And this caping for men who would never cape for you, who have never done this, never will. Cody is never gonna be this way for any woman ever. I promise. I don't know him, and I promise he never will. Neither will his friend, whose name I've already forgotten. Neither will Assam Gold, or whatever the fuck, that long-haired guy who I wanted to make a video about. Neither will the other two, who I also wanted to make a video about for a long time. I actually downloaded their video a while ago. I can't remember their names. Preach and Abba and Preach. They will never be this upset at a man for you. I promise you they won't. They won't. And you're here looking so stupid because you know what? That saying, these hoes ain't loyal, which is another example of just casual misogyny and a casual idea, a casual misogynistic idea that pervades our society. These hoes ain't loyal. They say it with their full chest. Bros before hoes, every disrespect, and women just smile like morons at every nasty thing men say about them and dance to the songs. But you know, the thing about that saying is that it is true. But the gag is, the hoes were men the whole time. Okay? Hoes aren't loyal, and men are the hoes. Okay, I'm in my Miss Sanders headspace. I'm sorry. Sorry to the good men. It's just so constant and common. It's very frustrating. Bear with me.
Bring up his emails and texts real quick. Oh, are these like the violent ones? Never.
Well, it's not fun anymore now, is it?
It never was. This was a woman being forced to recount her pain and trauma and sexual assault at the hands of her ex, whose whole plan was to humiliate her, was to smear her name, was to re-traumatize her, was to pay her back for leaving him. Nothing about that is fun. And even if we flip it and somehow, someway, Depp is the victim, Heard is the abuser, it's still not fun, because then we're talking about a male abuse victim. But that's the thing, it feels like, again, it feels like game. It feels like most of these guys, in the privacy of their own minds, when there's no camera, when Assam Gold is alone with his thoughts, when Cody is alone with his thoughts, when Abba and Preach are alone with their thoughts, alone with each other, when men are alone with each other and talking about this, I don't think any of them believe that Depp was abused. I think they hate women, and they like to have the upper hand in society, and so if they can now reassert to the world that even as abusers, their sex gets the favor even when they're bad, I think that's appealing to them, even if subconsciously, though I don't even think it's subconscious. I strongly suspect that when, again, no one is around but them, no one is around to record them, no dumb women are around to be shocked, these guys know Depp was not abused. They don't see him as an abuse victim. They know he wasn't. They know the male advantage when it's a man on woman physical altercation. They know. They're not stupid like the Deptford wives. They're stupid in other ways, but not stupid in that way. They know. And it's just these women who, again, over-empathize with men in a way that is not reciprocated almost ever, who are being conned by this genuinely, who believe truly he could be a victim. Poor Johnny. He's not, he wasn't. And part of, or some of the evidence for this fakery, this being game for these guys, is how not seriously they're taking it, is how not seriously They took Terry Crews's abuse allegations during the Me Too movement. They made fun of him. Overwhelmingly, guys made fun of him, or I should say, overwhelmingly, it was guys who made fun of him. I would maybe even wager and say it was all guys, but that seems impossible. But that was his reporting. He said guys made fun of him and women stood beside him when he came forward with his abuse allegations. There is not this serious feeling in men to validate male abuse victims, or if there were, there would have been a fuck ton of men behind Crews instead of making fun of him or saying nothing at all. It's about the woman. It's about male versus female, because Crews's abuser was a man. The thing that makes these men lose their shit, that makes them so passionate about this sort of case, it's a little bit of the celebrity of Depp, but it's more that his supposed abuser is a woman. Because these are misogynists, even if unwittingly, even if they're not the kind of misogynists who, I don't know, drag women by their hair and like beat the shit out of women every Sunday. They still have that thing in them where they don't like women unless the woman is serving them, and that is not even real liking. They tolerate women as something to have sex with. They tolerate women as something to stroke their ego. They tolerate women as nice things to look at. They tolerate women who do for them constantly. It's not real like, it's not real love. They just tolerate you. You're going to be the thing that bears their babies. You're going to be the thing that carries their legacy. So they tolerate you. That's not liking you. And women get confused by this and they think, oh, he's not like beating women, and look, he even has a girlfriend. He can't be a misogynist. Yes, the fuck he can. Of course he can. He can look down on women and have a loathing for women and want a sort of male supremacy to be the way things are in society, and still want to fuck women and partner women and have his children. That happens all the time. That's like the history of the world. Like, again, look at how pretty much in every society women have had to fight for their rights. It was not, do you notice it wasn't men's instinct to just be nice to women, like, ever? Like, women had to beg and plead and fight. And, like, again, not all men. I know some men do have that inclination and they're often outnumbered or outgunned, outmuscled. But overwhelmingly, all around the world, men have the seemingly instinct to oppress women, to treat them rather poorly. And it's women begging and pleading that is what gets them the rights and eventually persuading men to be decent, somewhat decent. But it's like they're fighting this thing in them that makes them want to compete with women and dominate women and have, some sort of male supremacy being what runs society. Because, like, this verdict just upholds male supremacy, which is what's appealing. Even if they can't articulate it, even if, and this is hard to believe, but even if they're somehow not aware and this is all in their subconscious, not their conscious, it's still their driving force here. Because this favors men. This verdict favors men. This thing where the women are getting all hateful of Amber over a man, that favors men. The thing where men get to openly be misogynistic, use misogynistic slurs, that favors men. That gives men, or solidifies more, because they already have the upper hand, but it further strengthens their upper hand in society. That's how they can laugh through this, because they don't take it seriously, because they don't see Depp as a victim. They don't. I would wager a stupid amount of money that they don't truly see him as a victim. And not in that noble bullshit way of, I don't see him as a victim, I see him as a survivor. No, they don't see him as a victim or survivor. They don't think he was ever in danger, because he wasn't. Most of the people who see him as a victim are women, clueless, stupid women. That's why this is funny to them. That's why they can laugh at this. In a way, if it were like a female victim that women were actually siding with overwhelmingly and believing, we wouldn't be making jokes, right? We don't do that because we take it seriously, because we actually see her as a victim, even if we also see her as a survivor. We're not going to sit around if it happened today and make jokes about Rihanna and like be giggling and say, oh, it's not funny anymore now that we see her picture. And we would take it seriously because we know it's serious, because we know it actually happened. We believe that. We see that through that picture of Rihanna after experiencing heinous abuse. Men are the primary ones who don't take male victims seriously, and then they're the loudest only when it's a man versus a woman. Are they the loudest whiners and criers when a man alleges abuse by a woman? You don't see why that is? You think they really care? You think they really see Depp as a victim? You think they think he was getting abused in his relationship? No, this strengthens their upper hand in society. This whole thing reasserted male favor and male dominance. And the thing is, a lot of men have little to no empathy for women, and they love a good witch hunt. So they get off on women being humiliated and tormented and bullied. That's what's fun to them about all of this, is Amber being humiliated, is a woman, especially a woman who looks like that. But again, they experience joy when a woman who looks like Amy Schumer gets humiliated too. So it's a component, her conventional beauty, Amber's conventional beauty, but not at the same time.
He did say some crazy shit.
Do you know any of it off the top of your head?
I mean, like, he wrote to his friend and was like, I don't know, like, basically, like, called her a cunt.
Why is this still okay? Do you notice how he can say maybe the worst, most dehumanizing, misogynistic slur with total comfort and impunity in a way that one never could with any other type of slur? This is more evidence that women are low-key, universally not respected or taken seriously, and that misogyny is very much a casual cultural norm. It's seldom even challenged by women when men talk like this. Girls are just like slowly conditioned from girlhood basically to know that they are the designated and socially accepted punching bag sex / group in society. So you can just say any disrespectful thing to and about them and use all of their slurs, again, with impunity, with no real pushback. That is very telling. It's very telling when a historically marginalized group has no social protections, and it's to the point where it's so normal they don't even notice, they don't even realize, they don't even really call it out when men use slurs against them. They're like, are you gonna tell me that men who have beaten, violated women didn't call them these slurs? That these slurs aren't tied to their oppression? So what is the logical reason for it being okay that Cody or any guy can say the C word and not face any kind of backlash? Because he couldn't say the N word and not face backlash. He couldn't say any racial slur and not face backlash. He couldn't say any homophobic slur. And these are good. This is how it should be. And I'm sure all of these guys behind the scenes and with no cameras, they say them all. They say the F word. Like Matt Damon just came forward like a year or two ago and said he just stopped saying the F word. Boston boy he is. I know it's very popular on the East Coast, especially in Boston. Very homophobic place, very racist place. But he did stop, and he certainly knows he couldn't say that publicly. The way he could probably say, certainly he could say the B word, the C word. It would be like a little bit of a upstir conversation, like, whoa, he said that, and then he'd be fine. That's what I imagine would happen. He would probably ultimately be fine. It's a bad sign for women's position in society when they don't even have the minimum of, like, basic respect, where you can't say slurs about them, where you can't use slurs targeting women. That's bad. That says something bad about the position women are in everyone's minds, in everyone's subconscious, including women, the way they see themselves, where they don't even think that they deserve basic respect. Like, I'm sure a million girls watch this, or however many fans Cody has, and they all, like, overwhelmingly watch that, and they didn't even notice that he said something he shouldn't have said. It's that casual, it's that normalized. Disrespecting women and girls is that normalized. And people think these things aren't connected, or they don't even notice to know that these things are connected, but they are so connected. They are so connected in how women and girls are regarded and mistreated, and how their rights can be eroded so easily. It's all connected. I know even, like, radfems probably don't connect this, but what do you think that means to people? Every little thing, every big thing, where, things like the whose last name do most people have? What do you think, like, knowing that is a norm, and learning that, and just taking that, does to how people, or impacts how people view the sexes, how people view a female's role versus a male's role, a male standing versus a female standing in society? How do you think it impacts people subconsciously to know that men can just say the B word, the C word, all the slurs, and that society only really stirs for the people who say slurs against the protected people, aka the groups that have men in them? What do you think that what do you think that signifies to the subconscious of everyone who absorbs this, who learns this, who observes this social norm? Misogyny is very insidious, and it has big global effects on women, negative ones. And this is the trouble with things like this, because it's not tangible. So anyone could just deny it and say, no, it's not a big deal. It is though. It is though, and it's a difficult conversation to have, but it really is that serious though.
Hope that she, like, wakes up in a ditch or something like that. Something I'm paraphrasing, but
objection, hearsay.
Let's drown her before we burn her.
Whoa. Yeah.
I will fuck her burnt corpse afterwards to make sure she's dead.
No, he's just preparing for his role as the villain in Joan of Arc. That's all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
This method.
So funny. But remember when he said,
I don't want to be glib if she's like a bad person.
So where is that energy for Johnny being found to be a bad person, a misogynist? It's almost like men will always be there to support, even if they have to do it privately, misogynistic and bad men. It's like men can really do no wrong. They never truly get canceled, they never truly suffer for their actions. I would have thought P words connected to hurting children, I would have thought that was the thing. At least there's that we can all agree on. But I don't think that's even true, because I look at the Catholic Church and I look at all those priests who harmed all those children, mostly boys, and how they were overwhelmingly protected. I mean, there is criticism, but still protected. Everyone was ultimately fine. And they just get to be. And people were not mad, They weren't mad like they were at Amber, if you notice. And you know, they'll like say all these harsh words for individual P words who are male, but it's, I don't know, there's no like vigor behind that. It's just, it almost feels like fake outrage. It almost feels performative because society, it doesn't, you know, P words, male P words have kind of always been able to get by, you know? And so, you know, if we can't even really truly fully ostracize the P words, then yeah, I think male people experience the closest thing to unconditional love. I know individually people can treat them very evilly and harshly, but societally it seems like they can do no wrong. They will always have a fan base, a group of cheerleaders of both sexes to be on their side. Like Louis C.K. can openly admit to doing something quite pervy, and still it's like, weirdly, it gets, the people he did it to, the women he did this to, are somehow the ones who come out vilified by his fans. That's the world we live in. It's like he does this creepy thing, and because of the psychosis of fandom and the fact that he's a guy, it just makes people nuts. It makes people very irrational, and men especially wanting to low-key and high-key, subconsciously and consciously, preserve the male upper hand. So anything that does that, like defending your boy, your bad boys, your creeps who masturbate in front of their subordinates, your creeps who, let's putting it lightly, murder their wives. There's always a fan base, and I notice too when they're not able to excuse the crime because it's too heinous, like in the case of O.J. Simpson, they still don't have the energy, and that's the most they can do, because you look too crazy and evil to defend the guy, although some do. But so you just like make jokes. That's what they do. They make a million jokes, videos about OJ. They're filled with, you know, with his more recent behaviors and comments. People, instead of condemning him, it's just jokes. It's like, okay, OJ, sit down. It's like that crazy old grandpa. They get that kind of treatment, the finger wag treatment, like the same thing Prince Andrew got, is just a little bit of, oh, Andy, sit down. That's it. Not much more than that. Meghan Markle is literally the devil, called a Jezebel, witch. Same with Jada Pinkett Smith. Same with Amber Heard. Same with J.K. Rowling. They vilify. There's a thing I saw that it's a good way to put it. I can't remember it now. It's like monsterfy, or they monster you. It's like, anyway, it was like a new way to say something I've been saying, which is like they go to this extreme with women. They turn women's like mild crimes that are even debatable to call crimes, and their mild sins that are even debatable to call sins, into the most evil act imaginable, and they literally will call it that. They'll say she's pure evil. I've seen that so much about all the women I mentioned, that she's evil. She wants trans people to die. Meghan Markle is evil. She's an evil manipulator. I've never met her, but I can just tell. And it's like, my God, if we were living in another time period, an older time period, the way these women would quite literally be dragged by their hair into the streets, tarred and feathered, tortured, I can only imagine, because it's been done before in like every culture. They've done a version of this to women, this humiliate, shame, murderous kind of thing. And it's like, only by the grace of modern times and modern protections are these women even safe at all. Because what the mob would do to all of these women for their quote-unquote crimes while Putin is like explodifying Ukraine. That's the world we live in. It's crazy, you know? All the people, all the men, all the high-profile men who raped children, who raped, trafficked girls, not a single one of them has been made to deal with the consequences of their actions, but except sort of Jeffrey Epstein, the one who's actually gonna, it looks like, face time for her involvement is a woman, is Ghislaine Maxwell. Men just have like so much power, way too much, a scary amount. They can rape 100 girls and people will still be upset if they have to face consequences. They can murder a whole country's worth of humans and people will still be like, but that's my guy, he's kind of funny, he's charismatic at least. They'll say that about a Putin. They even said even Hitler has a fan base. So, I don't know. So, you know, I just watch this and see Cody and his friend, Knowles, whatever. And it's just like, I'm very starkly aware of how their, you know, their energy, their vibe, their feelings, you know, people, you know, our species, we show how we feel. We're an emotional species, and you can just see, and you can see how they represent the masses too in this. They just don't care. Like Johnny being they just, it's funny. It's funny. That's all. They're like, and I know nothing I say is ever gonna make them not support him. Probably nothing he does, his support of misogynists like Hunter Thompson, who thinks that all women secretly want to be raped. His support of Roman Polanski. There's a video out about, or not about that, but of him expressing his support of Roman Polanski, who raped a 13-year-old girl, or was she 12? And then he went off to hide in, I forget which country, and he's living free there to this day. He's this bad person, and it just laughs because he's endeared himself into so many hearts and minds by A, being male, and B, being a movie star whose films have left an emotional imprint in a lot of people, on a lot of people. Not me, but a lot of other people. And so like, I don't know that he could even do anything that can make people see him as bad. Like, look at Trump. Like, he maintains a massive fan base, no matter how disrespectful or terrible he is. That's male privilege. That's male privilege. They are the sex, the type of humans who experience the closest thing to unconditional love, directly contradicting Chris Rock's theory that only women, children, and dogs experience unconditional love. That is not true. That is objectively false. The group that experiences the closest thing in our world to unconditional love is men. Whether they are P-words in the Catholic Church, or they are men who likely, very obviously, murdered their wives, O.J. Simpson style, raped a trafficked girl, Prince Andrew style, raped dozens of girls, R. Kelly style, held them against their will in his house. They all have fans. They all have people defending them to the death, to the end. Men can do no wrong, even when they do heinous wrong. even when they're pulling a Putin and annihilating a country, killing other men, killing women and children. It doesn't matter. They still have fans. They still have Americans, especially right-wing Americans, saying, well, at least they're not BLM. So it's them. It's men, male people, when they rape their mother, but if they identify as a woman when they do it, they're going to have a whole bunch of people who struggle very much to condemn them properly and fully, and who even have this twinge to massive heaping of empathy for them, even though they, raped their mother. Because it's this poor trans woman struggling with her identity in their minds. So it's like male people, they are the ones who experience the closest thing to unconditional love in our world. Chris Rock is a liar.
I just know that she's a bad person and she's hit him a few times.
Yes, in self-defense. And Amber is right. That is not an equal fight. An altercation between a man and a woman is not an equal fight. And it bears repeating and is worth noting that she has been misquoted when that quote attributed to her about no one will believe you because you're a man, or some variation thereof. That is not what she said. She said man in a dude kind of way, bro, no one will believe you, man. And she wasn't saying no one will believe you because you're a man, though she did point out that their fights were not equal, which is true. That is a fact. Men love to lord that fact over women, under any self-defense video for women. That doesn't even matter. Men are very aware of their physical advantage. Women are half in, half out. Women are, especially lib femmes, they're kind of delusional these days. But most people are very aware of the male advantage between men and women. You got the ACLU making this insane declaration that there's just literally no difference between the male and female body. And it's like, did I wake up in hell? What is going on? The ACLU said this. And it's like, are you trolling? Is that what this is? Insane timeline. But it is all connected. So, Depp is the bad person here. Amber, at most, she's gray. But Depp is definitely bad. He is a bad, disgusting, misogynistic person, and the level of support he has is it's just a slap in the face to women. I had to recently unsubscribe to a pro Meghan Markle account I follow because this girl is obsessed with exalting this disgusting pedophile defending, I just said the word after censoring it earlier, misogynist. At least you should not be praising Depp. Just shut up. Just fine. Say Amber's terrible, but the praising Depp part, I almost, the bar is very low, but I almost can say fine with the misogyny. It's too hard to get rid of, or it's too difficult to dig deep in self to even recognize that you have this misogynistic bias, that you have sexist biases. Fine. But then the part where you're exalting Depp, where you can't even bring yourself to criticize him, that's irritating me more than the misogyny, because I'm used to the misogyny. I'm used to people being harsher towards women, monsterifying or vilifying to the extreme women for mild behaviors, and over scrutinizing them. And if you don't like them, if you have that bias, the way people will suddenly the way she moved her eye or turned her head to the left becomes a sign of her narcissism. Every woman has gone through, well, not every, but every time a woman is targeted, they always do this now. Now every little thing she's ever done is actually it's a sign of how evil she is. How YouTuber Sean tries to paint J.K. Rowling as a racist, the whole time because of how she portrayed house elves, and like unwittingly in turn sort of revealing his own racist biases to even see that parallel. But don't want to get into that. But like this is the habit of how people treat women when they've labeled them bad. They go to the extreme to incite hatred for them, to justify hatred for them, because you know that like we don't really have much here, so we have to really vilify her. So if we call her evil, if we call her racist, if we call her a narcissist, which now seems to have a coded meaning of devil lady, then it's like anything nasty we do to her, say about her, and especially do to her, you know, if they really had their way, then it's justified, because remember she's racist, or remember she's evil, or remember she's literally the worst, whatever that means. And remember she's a narcissist, which, you know, is basically in these times seems to mean devil person. Like, it's just this, a narcissist now that it's like tied to women, it's borderline this mythical creature that deserves every kind of torture imaginable. If you'll notice the way people use it, the way they justify cruelty and saying and treating people labeled narcissists, and it's always women. And just all of the hypocrisy. It's like, she's an actress, she's acting, and he's an actor, and he's this legendary actor, and that accusation did not get thrown at him like it got thrown at her. And it's just, the misogyny is blatant, the male privilege is overt and in your face, and it's like a terrible movie that I would have said the writing is too on the nose. The way these people are going crazy for this male actor, it's a little too stupid. People are not this stupid. No, they are. They really are, though. They really, really are. Okay, so in conclusion, Johnny Depp is a piece of shit, and the people who support him are low-key, high-key pieces of shit. That includes Cody and his co-host here. Hey there. So I just wanted to add this bit to the outro. And I'm speaking from the present. I'm speaking from a time that is post Roe v. Wade's overturn. After a few days after, and getting used to this next level of dystopia we, and by we I mean women, are living in. And I'm adding it to explain, for starters, that I've been trying to upload this video for like 2 weeks now, and YouTube's been a jerk and just not letting me, and I've been running into this upload problem where it processes and then it just doesn't. It like stops at like 98% and during the processing. It's been very frustrating. So that's been what I've been dealing with, and yeah, it's very dated now. I mean, it's all very dated. But yeah, that's what I've been dealing with. That's why this is so delayed. And what else did I want to say? But so I found a way. But so I found a fix. I figured out how to upload it. Hopefully adding this won't mess it all up. And so I'm gonna re-upload it with this outro. And yeah, sorry and thank you. And I'm sorry it's so long. I don't know how to do things short. You know, I just go on these tangents and these rants, and it just, everything could be like, this could have been a 20-minute video if I knew how to like dial it in and stick to the topic. But here we are. I think it's gonna be 2 hours or more. And thank you for listening. And if you made it to this part, you're a real champion. Yeah. So thank you for listening and watching, and all the links to like most of the things I mentioned, claimed, citations basically, are in the description. and your patience is lovely and much appreciated, and I don't even know which side I hate more at this point, the left, the right. They're both evil, they're both awful. Well, evil is strong, but kind of true, too. They're both misogynist, that's certainly true. Yeah, misogyny is a very powerful thing. It's on all sides, and it's inescapable, and women are in hell, even the ones who don't know it, even the ones on either side. We're in hell. So that sucks. I don't know. I don't know how this all ends. We'll see. Okay, thank you for listening. Bye.